Hey everyone, Gary here with Peacekeeper's Armory. I just wanted to show off the chassis that I did a little reveal for a week or so ago. As some of you may recognize, this is the hilt that I 100% hand machined. Every piece on the outside of this hilt I machined myself. Thumb screws, blade plug, these two buttons which are spring loaded, the brass pins, everything on the outside. Okay, one exception is the small screw that attaches the cobalt ring, which I machined this as well. Originally, the intent was to fully machine the internals as well, and I designed it such that I could. However, with all the other projects I have going on and my time and moving, I wanted it done and I didn't have the time to machine it myself. So cut a couple corners and I had the inside CNC machined. But I designed it, and I designed the hilt around the chassis really, in order to get as a faithful recreation or production of the Clone Wars inspired chassis as I could. What it's based on is, I think, the first on-screen reveal of a crystal chamber from the Younglings episode from the Clone Wars animated show. It showed a group of younglings getting their first crystal and assembling their lightsaber for the first time. So I've seen a couple people do iterations of the hilt or of the chassis in 3D printed form or other close. I wanted to get it as close as possible. So this is my version of that. Oh, and back to the hilt temporarily. So it was originally like a mirror polish with a black powder coat on the handle. And I enjoyed that, but I wanted a more lived-in felt look. So I brought it all down, had the whole piece, including the chassis, vapor blasted, had Chris Royal over at Royal Customs, Custom Armory Customs, I always forget, and had him powder coat the pieces in black, and then the black bits here on the hilt as well. So back to the chassis. It was quite the difficult engineering, in my opinion, to get it as close as possible. In order to get the wires to show, in order to get the wire pass through and get as much electronics in here as possible. So I'll kind of show it off a little bit. I used a similar retention method that I do for a lot of my chassis, which is the speaker separates from the chassis with magnets, and instead of a set screw holding the sleeve on in order to hide it, I use the magnets as a security. So it doesn't go anywhere, but if you pull it off, you can see it magnetized back together. There's the speaker still in there. You can see you only see half of the speaker pad there, as just due to fitment. It had the battery had to be, the speaker pins had to be so low that I did that. But it is protected. It's set depth-wise past so it doesn't touch the metal inside ring. And also I put a piece of electrical tape on the bottom half just in case, to make sure there's no shorting there. So this is 18500 battery. In order to get the dimensions right, I had to go with a smaller, shorter battery. Still gets decent time of use, and I have my other plastic chassis to use if I want just battery life, with a USB-C recharging and board access, since the board is more difficult to access than it normally would be. Removable battery, so you could easily pull the battery out, swap a new one in, or recharge it via the USB port there. This was done in multiple pieces. These two nubs and these two greeblies were all done separately with platforms drilled into the center of this so that it would get the realistic look, and it's all aligned according to the shots in the show. Let me get this back on there. Yep. Boom. Good to go. Now, the way I designed this was I wanted a kill switch, but I didn't want to sacrifice any design or visuals. So the right button is actually a momentary latching converter switch that uses a momentary button like a normal tactile. Goes to a small little board chip that translates that to a latching style switch. and then that releases and activates the power from the board, from the battery to the board. So as you can see, there's no power, nothing's going on. But if I were to click that, then it activates the connection, and then you get power and sound. So that was my little way of getting a kill switch in there. I've done it a couple of times. It's obviously space consuming because of the extra chip set that you have to put in there and the wiring, which is always fun. But in terms of getting because you have the speaker, the battery, and the USB-C port all going up to here, which is where the board is. And obviously you only have those 4 poles to use, which you need for threading and to get the 2 pieces connected to each other. So what I did was I used 2 of them on opposite sides. I forget which one, but 2 pieces are just rods with through holes, and the wires route up through there, and then to the center and up through the center here into where the board is, which you'll see in a minute. Now, in order to hide them more, this piece is actually separate and glued in place. I try to avoid using glue so I can completely disassemble something and restart if I need to, but in this instance, there's really no way around it. So this piece right here is separate from this piece, and the bottom of this crystal, let me see if I can get it to focus. The bottom of this crystal holder here, here, and here are all one piece. There's a channel drilled alongside the poles on opposite sides where the wires have passage through, with another channel drilled on the inside of this ring so that it allows the wires to go through. And then the other ones that don't have wires going through are 2 long threaded screws, 440 screws that clamp everything together. So I had to get the crystal the right size. I had to trim it down to size. And you could probably kind of see a little bit, not really. I did as best as I could to get it there. And then I have a plastic piece on the inside that holds the LED in place. I did a couple of iterations of that to get the right height so that it would firmly press the crystal in, and put a little tiny bit of glue on there just to make sure it wasn't going to go anywhere. So all of these wires are just for show. They don't function or do anything. They're just to match the on-screen representation of what the wires do. Not my favorite part of the engineering aspect of it. On the computer, it looked great. In practice, it didn't work out so well. I actually had to try it a couple times because there's not a lot of room. It's only, I think, 0.04 inches thick is this plate right here, and that's not a lot of room for the wires to grab onto with the glue. So if I had more room, and maybe there's a way I could do it if I were to make another one in the future, where I can make it deeper so it has a better hold. Like up here, there's a lot, I think it's like almost 0.1 inch deep, if not more, where it actually grabs into, so it's a lot more stable. So I do worry that if I knock this, if I hold it or something, it might rip the wires out. But hasn't happened yet. This whole top section, not the hilt, but the chassis section, is held together by this piece right here. So the top crystal holder is separate from this portion, and there's a screw that goes from the center of it all the way in, and it clamps this piece to the main upper crystal chamber, and then also the neck up here. So that's how I was able to retain that. It's very sturdy. I mean, it doesn't go anywhere. And you can see I even got there's little grooves on the black piece there. I should have made them a little deeper because with the powder coating, it kind of shallowed it out a little bit. But if you look at the reference material, there's grooves in there along with the sleeve that goes over it for the aluminum to show. Now, if I were to take this out slowly, there's the 440 screw that I machined. And then here we have the full chassis as it is revealed. So in the actual one, these buttons, or whatever they are, they protrude a little bit. That doesn't really work for anything that needs to slide in and out of a hilt in reality. So that is, I made them recessed, but also, I forget what the process is called, but basically made it look as it was protruding without actually having it protrude like that is. They're very similar to those. And I wanted to make them the switches so that I didn't have any extra holes or anything that were unnecessary. This hole right here and this hole here are the two exceptions really in the whole hilt or the whole chassis to on-screen representation. Those don't belong there, but I use this one to secure the secure the chassis to the hilt, and then this whole the other one is to secure the sleeve up here, which I'll show you in a minute. And then obviously the bottom and top were just flat, like aluminum material in the shell, because they didn't actually do anything. So those are the only things that I did differently from accuracy wise. And then so these switches that I made are actually spring assisted, so they push into the hilt and then they come back on their own. That way I have no issues sliding the chassis in and out when I need to. Again, made these myself. I did use, I forget where I got them from. It was either Smuggler's Outpost or Saber Bay that had some spring assisted switches similar to this. So I did use some of those as a reference to how the design works, and then I made my own from there. So I didn't come up with the idea on my own at all. A lot of times designs are taken from other people, and it just gives you that little bit of an imagination push that you need to get what's in your mind onto in your hand. So now I'm gonna take this off. I don't know how pretty it's gonna be because these are plungers, so they can be a little picky when you're taking this on and off. So it's designed, the reason I put the USB down here is because of how quote unquote difficult it would be to remove the sleeve all the time in order to access the board. So all you have to do is remove this, access the board there, and then you're good to go if you need to make any updates. But if for whatever reason you do need to, I did make it possible. Just remove this screw, which is held in place with a nut on the other side of the plastic chassis. So I'll put this upside down so that the plungers sit, and then there we go. So you can see the plungers are sitting in there. I'll just leave that upside down. And then there's the board. There's the switches. And then here's the two screws holding both the chassis and this upper collar to the neck. And you can see the, what's it called? These wires go up through this portion underneath and they butt up right against the chassis. So they're in there pretty good. The board I haven't glued in. I was originally going to, but I haven't needed to, and I've been using it quite a bit and it hasn't moved, so I don't feel the need to. So you could access the SD card for a quicker font change if you need to, but so far hasn't been needed. You can see this is offset a little bit, and when you put this back on, the thickness of here matches pretty nicely, all intended. So that's pretty much it for this. Not a whole lot else to show. Let me see if I can get this on without any drama. Nice. So I'll put this back on. So it is a single button config with the Profi board, because the second button is using the momentary converter, which is placed underneath the Profi board. So there's no real easy way to access that without removing the board, but I mean, you don't need to. The switch on the outside is what you need. So let me screw this in real quick. Originally, I would have liked to make a removable crystal similar to the Revan, but there's no way to, or I should say, there's no easy way to get the upper switch that compresses. This is how I do it. This bottom's a spring with the LED, and the top is a switch which uses the Blade ID. Or I'm sorry, not Blade ID, Blade Detect function in order to get that. So I think there's room down here for the spring setup and everything, but there's since the screw is what holds a lot of this together stably, without doing a lot more engineering to make this like a screw-in function or whatever, it'd be difficult to do, but it would be nice to be able to grab this over room for your fingers. But so let's
volume menu. Exiting volume menu. At last we will have our revenge.
So I have a couple fonts in here.
Static. Waste the motherfuckers!
Pardon the language.
Darth Revan.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. I wanted to show off this chassis. I think it's, I'm very pleased with how it turned out. As far as I'm concerned, one of the most accurate Clone Wars chassis available, or not available, but made. And happy to have it part of my collection. One day maybe I'll machine one myself, but I'm very happy with how this turned out. So hope to see you guys on the next one. I have a bunch of Coda sabers that are getting a nice full metal treatment coming up soon. And then also some a Star Killer project that I'm working on with the Boo-Book's Garage Star Killer. So I'm excited to show those off in more detail. So I'll see you guys on the next one.